This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings and, of course, to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
Hey, we're here with Mason Pilkinton out of Houston. I really wanted to have him on the podcast. We met at the Hero event like a week and a half ago, right?
Something like that.
It feels sooner, but a lot has time already. But it's kind of cool. It's weird how that works, but it's cool people you meet and opportunity to meet and change new lives. I like Mason here because he knows a lot of real estate terms, terminology, and experience at 20 years old, which is amazing. So I love talking to young people, just because it's not that I'm much older. I turned 30 this year, but I'm like, there's people out there that are doing great things at such a young age, and I hope other people aspire to do the same thing. So I started my first business when I was 25, and I thought I was young at the time, but like to hear Mason here is 20 years old. So first question I always like to ask is, how did you end up here? Like, what was your first job? Were you Chipotle or something like that, and you ended up being a real estate investor a year later?
Yeah, so I started out, like, with me personally, I went to college, was going to go there to become a neurosurgeon, and then I kind of realized it's not my path. I'm going to eventually own something. So I changed my route to go down the path of business and business finance. Whenever I did that, I was working at Jersey Mike's, and I got a taste of it, but I realized that I was only worth like $8 an hour, and that's all I was making. And so I timed my money, as in, if I wanted to go buy a Whataburger sandwich, that would be like an hour and 10 minutes worth of work. And it just wasn't, and that's something we have in Houston. In Texas, it's more Texas local. It's amazing. Yeah, it just kind of got to me that I would rather own the store. And so I started like talking to the business owner, since he is an owner and he also owns real estate. He kind of talked to me about a few things, but I will say my mom's been in real estate for the past 20 years, started one of the biggest companies nationwide called Lifestyles Unlimited. And they kind of help mentor people and kind of help bring people into real estate. So that's kind of how I got started. And then I went to a Teenage Millionaire Challenge, which was held in Raleigh, North Carolina, with Javier Hinojo, Tim Mai, and Robert Allen. We all came out there and they kind of taught us what they knew and went from there. And ever since then, we've been rolling. That was about 9 months ago.
9 months ago. It's not like Jersey Mike's. It's not a bad thing.
No.
It's not a bad thing. And it's just one of those things where my time is more valuable. I can do more with my time. I had a guy on earlier. I think he's 20 years old. He was working at Chipotle. Like, Chipotle, come on. So it's kind of like one of those things where, like, no, it doesn't really matter where you start or how you start. It's just that you started. That's it. It's just that you started.
Most definitely, yeah.
So 9 months into the Millionaire Challenge, what really intrigued me about that, because I love that somebody even thought to do that. So shout out to Javier and Tim Mai for that. That is amazing thing to do. As soon as I heard it, I perked my ears. I'm like, that's like one of my big drives, is to help educate and just help the younger audience entrepreneurs, just because when you're an entrepreneur, it's very lonely. And I think you even said it when I spoke to you in Florida, is that you dumped everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. And I got tons of shit for it, but in the end, yeah, it is kind of lonely, but you kind of have to embrace it. You get used to it, and it becomes what drives you is kind of integrated in all that.
It's not an easy path, but it's one worthwhile. That's what I will say.
Definitely.
But I had to do the same thing when I started. Not necessarily even. It's one of those things, like, once you leave high school, like, you don't talk to anybody you went to high school with very often, and if you do, it's kind of weird. It's because you almost like outgrow your past, And it's not even a bad thing. It's just that you grow as an individual, and it happens at some point in your life, and you realize that they're not in the same path as you, which is fine. Everybody goes on separate paths. When I started entrepreneurship, that got even smaller. Like, it's crazy because like high school is like a separation sometimes, and then entrepreneurship is like a whole separation again, just because not many people, you can't really explain to people what you do and how you do it because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, most definitely.
So one thing I thought was amazing, and I want you to tell the number, is that you were on stage in Florida and you're talking about how you filled out, you and all the other teenage people filled out like millions of dollars of LOIs.
Yeah. So if you're not really familiar with an LOI, and LOI is pretty much just a letter of intent, just saying that you are interested in the property, where you underline the terms and stuff before you actually go in depth on the contract. So there's no earnest money needed. It's just sent out. And we honestly, personally, I've probably sent out, well over 800 million in LOIs. And it's just, and then as a whole individual, like as a group, I would say, in the billions for sure. I just don't know how many. I would say probably around 3 billion in total, because some of these properties a lot of them aren't small. Small meaning like some of them are worth 50 million, 30, 40 million, 50, whatever it may be. Like but about personally 800 million.
It's such a good exercise. I have never done that before. That's why I was amazed when I heard it, because it's such an exercise to do that, just because I've done a few LOIs and I'm like, this is like it was overwhelming to me in my head because I had nobody walk me through it. So did you get any offers accepted?
We have. So we've had a few that got accepted, and then we kind of went down the line, processed further. And honest, none of them have went through for the Teenage Millionaire Challenge yet, but it's just such a good time. Like, it's such a good thing to do. Like you said, just to kind of get in that habit of sending out LOIs and moving through it like that. Because worst case scenario, they say no. The markets was very crunched. Now it's kind of turning up. For example, if you were to go and buy a home, you're buying it at $40,000 less than what you would have a month ago before they hiked the interest rates. So we haven't got any accepted on the LOIs, or we have got some accepted, but none of them have went full circle. But it's awesome. It's fun.
I think the good exercise about that is that you understand the wording, which I think is half the battle. The phraseology used for the LOI, and then talking to brokers, because commercial brokers are like they're their own obstacle, and that most investors I've never spoken to. So did you speak at all to commercial brokers?
Yeah. So actually, first week, I personally probably called about 30, 40 brokers, and just constantly just called them, would look up, hey, like biggest brokers and at this company or whatever, just call up random brokers and just kind of talk to them, get to know them. It works out. It's just getting over that hurdle of them saying, hey, what's your IRR? What type of IRR are you looking for? What cap rate? Just, they throw out terminology, and if you're not familiar, you'll get crucified. There's
one thing I learned about business is that if you don't know the phraseology in whatever niche or business you're going into, they can instantly see through it, and they will hurt you in words.
Yeah, most definitely.
They'll hurt your feelings in business. And it's not even like they do it. I'm sure they do it on purpose sometimes, but a lot of it is just a learning experience. They'll hurt you with words just because you're inexperienced in the phraseology, in the language. And I will tell you that there's levels to it, because real estate has its own language, and then you have commercial real estate that has its own separate language, but it's all individualized to whatever niche you're in. So it's very, very interesting to have that conversation and learn that conversation at such a young age. So I commend you. I commend all the people that participate in the group, because that's amazing. That knowledge is priceless.
It's definitely something hard. Like you said, it's definitely its own niche. So I understood single family somewhat pretty well, and going into multifamily is just so different. It's just completely different. Like you said, it does take time, but just with trial and error is the best way I think you can do it.
So are you doing any other type of real estate besides that other stuff, or are you kind of venturing out and doing your own things now?
I'll flip a house or wholesale something. Like currently we have a flip going on. Other than that, just really, I had a time where I was cold calling like 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and I kind of backed away from that and realized that I have the skill set to do bigger ones. Why not just go big? And I'm talking like money where it's $7.6 million that we're buying the property for, and it's going to net us, and by the time we exit, like a 2.3x multiple. So
that's amazing. I want to be like you when I grow up. And I think a lot of people. So let's kind of break down some barriers here. What is the implication of going into larger transactions? Like, is it like a money thing? Is it an experience thing, or is it all the above? Because a lot of people are afraid to jump into multi-million-dollar deals because they don't have multi-million-dollars to do it. So what's the gateway, or what's the understanding?
Yeah. There's no need to have money. Like, you don't need the money to do it, honestly. You just need to know people and leverage their time, leverage their knowledge, and that way. So for example, let's say I haven't been focusing on the banks. I don't know how to get a loan or any of that, but I do know somebody that is good with the banks. So I can bring them on and just leverage their knowledge, bring them on, give them equity in the deal, and go from there. And then for the down payment, I can say, hey, if you give me the money for the down payment, for example, for the 7.6 million one, they'd give 76,000. If they were to give 76,000, I'd say, hey, I'll 1.5x your money that you put in, and I'll also give you equity on the outside, on the backside of it. So there's so many different ways. All you have to do is just leverage, honestly, just leverage the people you know and leverage the people that you meet and just build the relationships. It's such a relationship game. And a lot of people think, oh, like I'll go and do it all by myself, or you can do that in single family. Typically, it just in any aspect of entrepreneurship, it's all about the relationships and building those relationships.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, just because a lot of people they can't think past that. They stay small and do things small just because they don't understand the implications. So how do you meet people that are operating at that level?
It's so I can go to local real estate events. For example, we have North REI in Houston. Went to that a few times. Quality people there, but some of them are it's also like a beginners in a way. Like there's a lot of people there. Some people there just to start, and you just kind of have to figure out who's there, who's doing what you want to do, and kind of mimic what their behaviors are, mimic their thoughts, mimic all that, and in reality, be a sponge. That's what I've always been told, and it's just the right terminology for it. But just going to those events, or like the best events I've ever went to are events like the Hero event, are events where you pay to get in, are events where you actually go and you put money out of your pocket to get there. And I'm not just talking about the flight or the hotel cost. Like, paying to get in the event elevates the quality of people in the room and the seriousness of the room. And then it helps you further your goals and aspirations tenfold.
That's a lot of people don't want to pay.
No, I know. And you don't have to pay to start, but yeah, it does help to pay eventually. Eventually you want to pay and get around those people and just go from there. I mean, like I said, not necessarily the higher, but typically the rooms that I've went to that are like $300, $400 are better than the rooms that are free typically. So it all just depends though on the events. It all just depends on what you're looking to get out of it and stuff like that.
So I'm on the other side because we do our own events too. So I totally agree with you too. The higher you raise the event, or if it's free, the less people appreciate it, and the less people that show up. But the higher you raise it, now I've noticed that recently, and it's kind of interesting. It doesn't make sense in your head that's how it works, but that's how it works. It's kind of it's kind of cool to see personally. You know, what are things that you've had to overcome early just because you are younger? Do you feel slighted in some ways just because people see how young you are and they think the experience level isn't there?
No. Not really. And then if they do, then that's where I leverage my team and I leverage their experience. So if somebody's like, why would I go in on a deal? Why would I get my money from my IRA or my 401k? Why would I invest that with you? You're half my age, in some cases, like 1/3 my age. And why would I give you my money? And I'd say, well, yeah, I am 20 years old. However, the knowledge that I have is one of an expert, of one of people who have 30 years minimum in the real estate industry. And then I just and I'd say, hey, I have this gentleman who's on my team. He comes on, he's been in the industry for 30 years. He's done over $1 billion in transactions. He's a part of the team. So if you don't trust me, trust him. Oh, if you don't trust him, then what about the loan broker? Last year, he lent out over $200 million in commercial real estate. In fact, checks all those, and all those properties are performing well over where they started and what the projections are. And I just build in that rapport and build in that understanding that even if I were taken out of the equation in general, that the property would still function at a high operating level through the work of my team. So it's awesome.
That's a very good answer. It's a very good answer to that question. A lot of people would quiver. They would probably buckle under that pressure. Like, because that's a lot. That's a lot to say and a lot to put on. But your team is important.
Most definitely, always.
So how does somebody put together the team? Is it through the networking events and all that other stuff, and that's how you put together the team?
Yeah, so some portions of the team are, other portions aren't. So other portions are just going to be me calling, saying, hey, like, or going just talking to my buddies who are in the industry. In reality, it all just comes down to the networking. So, for example, if I go to events, if I go to the Hero event and I meet somebody there and I'm like, hey, do you know anybody that's located in Houston that fights insurance appraisers? And because you can go and you can have an appraiser and then you can hire somebody to fight the appraiser.
Yeah.
And do it that way. And then both of them are on your team. But so I just go to these events and I'll just talk to them. I'll say, if like worst case scenario, I'd say, hey, who do you know that does insurance? Let me talk to them. Or who do you know that does management in Houston? Let me talk to them. Or whatever city or state you're located in. And just going to the events doing it that way. Or you can just straight up cold call them, look up brokers or loan brokers or any of that in any city, any state, or any of that, anything that's involved in the transaction, tax assessment, insurance assessment, all that. Just kind of either cold calling or just going to the events, networking, and going from there.
I am excited to see where you are in 5 years. It's such an open path. Like, I've done a lot. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur for 4. I'm coming up on my 5th year this year. I'm 4 and some change, And I feel like I've done a lot that I would never thought I would do, coming from truck driving, So 5 years is a long time, and 25, you're still so young that wouldn't be surprised if you're not a billionaire by 30 or 35. Like,
I agree.
It's pretty crazy to think about. But you set yourself on that own path by your decisions you made at 19 and 20 and 8, and what you will continue to make. So it's not a one-step decision to make this path. It's a everyday step to make that decision to go down this path.
Every day. And I always hear people say, like, oh, like, I've heard some people say, well, I wish, like, I would have got started at your age and stuff like that. And it just comes down to it. You can start at any age. You can start investing, start becoming an entrepreneur at absolutely any age. And that's one thing that I hate, that facade of people saying, like, oh, like, I'm too old, or I don't know something or something. Go out there and just get it. It doesn't matter. Just go get it. It'll come to you.
It's just got to be consistency.
Yeah.
What is a book or books that you recommend? Because I heard that you're a reader.
Yeah. So if we're talking mindset, I would definitely say The 4 Agreements. Currently reading that one now. The Prince is really good, and that kind of breaks down just the mind and kind of how you understand about different, and in reality, it just breaks down to controlling a business. It is talking about like political stuff from the 14th century or something like that. It's an Italian philosopher, but it just breaks down kind of how to build the team, how to structure everything in a way, and kind of just how people just think about different options. And then real estate wise, I mean, Apartment Syndication Made Easy. That one's pretty good. It's by Vinny Chopra. And there's a few others, like David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. It's a must. You just have to realize that your body, and you're able to do way, way more than you actually think.
I did order the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, for my brother-in-law, so we got it the other day. I excluded that one, just knowing that it's like that's just a must, honestly. If you're starting, it's something you have to read, I'd say. It just breaks down the basics. The basics. What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
That's a good question. I always write down quotes. But I mean, I have some on my board. We could go with, I guess, a man who lacks purpose distracts himself with pleasure. And that just comes down to everything in life. And that's why pulling yourself away is such a big thing from everything that could give you pleasure. Not everything, but most things that could give you pleasure, and just focusing and hunkering down just on life. It's just something that you have to do at some point to level up.
Can you say that one more time? That was a really good one.
Okay. It was a man who lacks purpose distracts himself with pleasure.
Man who lacks purpose. Wow. I've never heard that one. See, this is a question I always ask. I hear a lot of the same ones usually, but that one's a good one.
Yeah, it was either that or between that or a more fati, but that's not really a quote. But yeah, I like that one a lot, just because it breaks down everything in life, pretty much. Like and it's such a basic thing. That's why the Romans were like, we're gonna give them food, give them entertainment, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Do you set goals for yourself? Or you're kind of like, I'm just gonna go as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and I'll get there type of person. That's how I am.
I've always had issues setting goals. Issues meaning like I would set a goal, and then I wouldn't. It just wouldn't end up well. As in, like I'd set a goal for a year, and I'd either hit it within 3 months or something. So, and then I'd like lower it down to a month where I needed to hit the goal. And so what I kind of do is I don't set goals anymore. Instead, I just think like, what would somebody, not necessarily don't set goals, but I say, what would somebody that is where I want to be, what would they think? How do they think? What do they do? And just kind of like in all reality, just impersonate the hell out of them. So I'll go and I will sit there and act like I'm them. Like I'll say, okay, if somebody is a billionaire or a millionaire who's financially free and just sitting back, just working on his stuff that he loves, what would he do? Would he go to the club tonight, or would he just sit down and relax and do some work? Or just always just kind of putting myself the mindset of what somebody would do that's already where I want to be.
No,
not the traditional answer, but
no, I mean it shows your wisdom and experience even at such a young age. Just because a lot of people, I tell everybody that I mess and talk to, like I'm an old soul. Like I don't do things that people my age do. I really don't. And it's one of those things. It's not that really I hinder myself. It's just I don't want to do it. I don't get pleasure from doing those things. I have a greater purpose, I guess. And it's not even putting shame on everybody else. It's just I don't waste time doing that. I had a big problem when I was younger with video games. I would just waste time and time and time, play video games all through high school. I'd play video games at night after I got home from school all night, and then wake up 3 hours of sleep and go back to school again. And I had a problem. I'll admit I had a problem. And now it's just like, I don't even have time for that stuff. And it's not that I don't enjoy doing it. It's just, I know how much time I could waste once I turn it on, but I don't turn it on. And it's been like 7 years since I put it on. So now it's like, that urge is gone to do that anymore. And there's other things that I'd rather put my time towards.
Most definitely. Yeah, that's the same with me. I used to be like that. And then it's just come. That's why I like that quote so much. It's because what I found is I will kind of replace different versions of the pleasure just through my life and just kind of go from that. And I'll just replace one. Like, for example, I may replace video games with hanging out with friends, or do that with more productive things, but that aren't actually getting me to where I want to go. So it's always, and that's why I like that quote so much. But yeah, it's something that I used to have the same issue with, and a lot of kids our age do. I know tons of people that do.
And it's not even a bad thing. Like it's just showing where to put your time that's worth more of your while, and what's actually going to help towards your career. Yeah, I probably need to make time to read books, but it's just one of those things where I don't have the urge. I probably need to listen to audiobooks.
Yeah, that's what I do. I listen to a lot.
I used when I was truck driving, I would drive like 10 hours a day or something like that. So I had like all the time in the world just to listen to stuff. When I first started truck driving, I used to listen to music. And then there was a point where I was like, I need to change this opportunity to educate versus entertain. So there was a flip that switched for, instead of music that I listened to, it was education versus entertainment. And then that's where I kind of went down this path. And it was a mental decision to use that time to educate versus entertain. Because entertainment, you can kill 10 hours of listening to music on a road trip easily. Like, what if you actually listen to an audiobook, if you listen to a podcast, if you listen to some type of education, that might save you 10 years of your life working a job.
Yeah. Actually, though, yeah, and that's the same with I wasn't driving as much. I wasn't a truck driver, but I would drive like from Houston to Austin, which is like 3-4 hours, like pretty much 2 times a week and stuff like that, or go from Austin, San Antonio, just driving and doing work that way as well. And it just wasn't. And then I'm like, damn, like I've heard the same songs. I only like 10 songs really. Even though I have thousands in my playlist, I only listen to like 10 of them. This is boring. Like, what can I do? And so like I started watching movies like The Secret. Not smart. I don't recommend that. But I would like put the movie on and just let it like sit there and kind of watch whenever. Listening to books though was the easiest thing. I'm like, damn, like that killed more time. In my opinion, I turned it because it was entertaining to me. It just killed more time than just listening to music over and over and over again, every day, all day.
Are you a habit person where you wake up at the same time every day?
No, or yes, but my habits are not where I need them to be. So, for example, I typically wake up around 10 because I like to stay up and work. That's just whenever I feel more productive. But I'm trying to switch it to Yeah, I'm trying to switch it to like where I go to bed at 8 or 7 p.m. and wake up at 3 or 4 and then go from there. So
I'm like you now. I think it was my video game habit that made me into like a night owl, and then now I usually stay up late working, and then I wake up late. But it's my own prerogative though, because I get more work. Like I have kids, so my kids are asleep.
Yeah,
so
it's your free time. You're alone.
I actually have time to get some work done without being distracted, and my wife will be asleep, whatever. So I can actually get more work done. But on the other side of it is that I kind of miss them. I mean, I do spend time in the mornings too as well. But it's just one of those things where like it's my personal preference. I did see one of my podcast guests I recently interviewed. He's like, yeah, I'm starting work at 11 o'clock. Don't judge me. And I'm like, and he put underneath of it, I've worked all these years to enjoy my time, and I can start work whenever I want because I have the freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's me. That's me. I'm starting work at 11 o'clock because I can.
PM or AM?
AM.
Okay. I was thinking PM for a sec.
Well, I mean, he was Eastern, so it was like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
But I usually start work at 10 o'clock, which is when this podcast was. I'm working right now.
Yeah.
So this is 10 o'clock. So like 10 a.m. is when I start. Like my morning is, I spend time in my morning, eat breakfast with my family, and then I start work at 10 a.m. That's just how it is. I choose when I want to start, and like other people are like, you start work at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm like, yeah. That's what it is. You're gonna have to deal with it.
Exactly.
But it's interesting to have the freedom to do whatever you want. What was that transition like? Because that is a bigger transition than you realize. Just from working a regular job to working for yourself.
Yeah. So for me personally, it was a big jump. So I went to college, and that's where I was working at Jersey Mike's. And then I came back. I went to a mastermind, which opened my eyes whenever I heard that people didn't have degrees. Some of them did, but some decent amount of them did not have degrees and were absolutely killing it. Absolutely killing it. I mean, one of the gentlemen there sold a business for $800 million and grew that to $800 million from $42 million in 2 years. So that right there alone is absolutely insane. But going in there and listening to them just kind of tell their stories and just talking to them and getting to know them a little more, that kind of pushed me off. And I was like, damn, like I can't go work again. Like there's so much more that I'm not able to experience and live because I'm not doing any, because I'm just sitting there at a job doing that. While I was doing dishes, I'd listen to books, etc., educate. But for me, the transition was pretty hard, but it just comes down. Another book, Atomic Habits. That's another good one as well. That one is awesome because it breaks down how to actually program your mind to remember and do habits on a consistent basis. And how, for example, one girl used to ride a horse every week or whatever with her friend, and she'd smoke a cigarette while she was riding the horse. And then she sold the horse for 20 years, got back on the horse with a different horse 20 years later, and immediately had the craving to smoke a cigarette, even though she hadn't picked it up in 20 years.
Wow.
And that kind of, whenever I read that book and that part came up, I realized that for you to like kind of build those habits, that's the main thing. The working by yourself for yourself, it is a big difference, but you have to have the habit. You have to sit down and say, hey, I am working for somebody else. Like I have a reminder on my board saying I am my own boss, which pretty much for me, that means that I tell myself when I'm working, and I do that. And for me, like, it's like, I got to get up at 10, but I'm working until 7 or 8. And so that's my time. I can't go out. I can get a few breaks or whatever, but just setting those boundaries and putting yourself to work as if you're not yourself, like as if you're employing somebody else. That's how you have to that's how I've kind of went about thinking about that.
The hardest boss is there's a quote I saw the other day, is that and it probably doesn't make sense to real estate people, but it makes sense to me because I have a service-based business. Everybody wants to be their own boss till you realize your clients are your boss when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it really hit me hard because I'm like, man, my clients give me the hardest time, and like they're my boss. I got to work for them. But it's a different type of fulfillment. But I can handle a lot more people at that time. But
yeah,
they can be their own burden in itself. But it shows that the change is different. Like I was talking to my wife this morning. She's like, you work even when you don't work. You work. What do you mean? She's like, if you don't work the whole day, you're still gonna work at night. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. It is good having that freedom, though. I'll say that. It is good having the freedom as long as you do something with it, and you have to manage it, of course.
I golf occasionally. I haven't golfed this year yet, but it's one of those things where like it's the reason why people that are golfing are rich, because they have the time freedom to go to the course at 6 a.m. in the morning for 4 hours or so and just do nothing. They're not held accountable to nobody, and that's what makes them rich. The freedom to do whatever you want. That's an amazing freedom. I kind of asked my last question, but what states are you doing deals in? What type of deals are you looking for?
So I do real estate deals in any red state. Any red state, meaning any state that's landlord friendly. So that's just me personally. That's my preference. I mean, I could go into blue states, but I never thought, whenever I was younger and hearing my mom talk about real estate, never thought that I'd have to pay a tenant to move out, like pay him for the keys. And I'm talking like $500, which is like the cash flow for 1-2 months on some properties.
Just to get out.
Just for them to move out and move somebody back in. I never thought that was something that I would have to do. So that's why I don't go to the blue states, the not landlord friendly states, I should say. But typically I do most of my deals in Texas just because I'm based from here. I have more connections here, but then I have a good amount of connections in like Georgia, Florida, Pennsylvania, I'll typically just kind of push off to my buddies over there, Alabama, some in Nevada. So
you're all over the place. Where can people send you deals?
They can send it to my email, or they can just shoot me a DM. My email is just going to be my first name, or it's the and then my first and last name @gmail.com. Y'all can send me deals there. And typically what I like to do is I like to add people in on the deals. So I don't just like to, I mean, if they need the cash now, then we can do it that way, where I just wholesale it from them. I buy it from them. Yeah. If they don't want that, then more than happy to throw them in on the deal and give them equity as well for that.
So there's your Instagram. People can send you deals there, and your email address. We like doing the same thing, just because if you pay people on the deal, I mean, they could get the money now, but if they get equity.
And equity, and like one thing that not a lot of people know is that the write-offs, like that's one thing I know I can help everybody. That's why I like real estate, because I know I can help everybody. Meaning I can go, and if someone were to go and invest, or let's say if somebody were to go and bring me a deal and I weren't to pay them a single dollar, but I gave them, let's just say $10,000 of equity. Then with that $10,000 of equity in the property, then they can double that on the write-offs because of cost segregation. And that's if you're not a real estate investor. If you are, you can 3x it, etc. So my friend, they just bought a commercial real estate building for $12 million, put down $3 million, and wrote off the other $9 million in a month. So by them investing $3 million, the real estate investors saved about $7 million, $8 million, because they didn't get the full price, but they did get like $10 million in write-offs. So in reality, like 3x'd their investment just from write-offs.
And that's how you don't pay taxes.
Yeah, it's I say it's simple, but it kind of is. But yeah, that's how you don't pay taxes, and that's how I know somebody in Houston who is worth like $500 million, and he gets stimulus checks. Go and cash those, and while he's in his Porsche or his Bentley or his Bugatti, and he'll go and do that. It's just because he knows how to work with the game. The game's meant for you not to pay taxes.
That sounds like a terrible idea. So if you're all in seriousness, want to pay less taxes, become an investor, start learning real estate. Start whenever you can. No age is the wrong age. And be consistent is where we'll leave you at.
Yeah, that's just what it comes down to, is being consistent and knowing your greater why.
That's it. Well, I appreciate your time, Mason. It's been a great episode. I hope people get a ton of value from it, and I hope people go follow you and bring you some deals, because that's what it's all about. We're all about here to share the wealth, and we're here to educate and inform and empower our people. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. Truly.
No problem.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.